What would you do if accepting $100 million from a mafia boss was the only way to save your sister? But saying yes meant entering his dark world forever. Chapter 1. The underground bar reeked of cigarette smoke, cheap whiskey, and something darker that Stella could never quite name. Blood, maybe. Or fear. She wiped down the mahogany counter for the third time that hour, her hands trembling slightly as she glanced at the clock on the wall. 11:47 p.m. 3 more hours until her shift ended. She needed to stay focused. She needed to keep her head down. That was the only way to survive working in a place owned by the Volkov family. The bar sat 2 floors beneath a legitimate nightclub, accessible only through a hidden door in the supply closet. Down here, the rules of the outside world didn't apply. Down here, men made deals that ended in bloodshed, and women like Stella served drinks and pretended not to hear anything. Another round, sweetheart. A regular named Victor slid his empty glass across the counter. His knuckles were bruised and split. Fresh injuries. Stella poured vodka without meeting his eyes. Here you go. You're too pretty to be working in a place like this. Victor's smile showed gold teeth. When you gonna let me take you somewhere nice? I'm fine where I am, thanks. Stella moved away quickly, her heart hammering. She had learned early on that encouraging any attention in this place was dangerous. The door at the top of the stairs suddenly burst open. Heavy footsteps thundered down the steps. The entire bar fell silent. Even the music seemed to lower in volume. Stella's breath caught in her throat. Alexander Volkov had arrived. She had only seen him twice before, both times from a distance. He was the kind of man you didn't forget. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that looked like they could see straight through to your soul. He wore an expensive black suit splattered with. Stella's stomach turned. That was definitely blood. 6 men followed behind him, all armed, all wearing the same cold expression. They moved like predators, scanning the room for threats even in their own territory. Alexander walked straight to the VIP section, his jaw clenched tight. Even from across the room, Stella could feel the rage radiating off him like heat from a fire. Get him the Stolichnaya. The good bottle. Now! Her boss, Pavel, hissed at her from behind the bar. His face had gone pale. Stella's hands shook as she reached for the top-shelf vodka. She placed it on a tray with a clean glass and walked slowly toward the VIP section. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, to send someone else, to do anything but approach the most dangerous man in the city. But she needed this job. She needed every dollar. Alexander sat sprawled in the leather booth, his head tilted back against the seat. His white shirt was open at the collar, revealing a muscular chest marked with scars. The blood on his suit jacket was still wet. Your vodka, sir. Stella's voice came out steadier than she felt. She set the tray down on the table and turned to leave. Wait, that single word froze her in place. Stella turned slowly, forcing herself to meet his eyes. They were gray, she noticed. Gray like storm clouds. Alexander studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You're new. I've been here 4 months, sir. I would have remembered you. He poured himself a glass of vodka and drank it in one swallow. What's your name? Stella. Stella. He repeated it slowly, as if tasting the word. You don't belong here, Stella. I can see it in your eyes. You're too pure for this world. Stella didn't know how to respond to that. She stood frozen, acutely aware of his men watching her from nearby tables. Alexander leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Despite the blood and the violence that clearly clung to him, there was something almost broken in his expression. Did you know that innocence is the rarest thing in my world? I haven't seen real innocence in years. Everyone I know is corrupted, stained, ruined. I should get back to work. Stella took a step backward. How much do you make here? Honestly. The question caught her off guard. That's personal. Humor me. Alexander poured another drink, but didn't consume it. He just stared at the glass. 500 a week? 1,000? Around that. Stella's throat felt tight. Why was he asking these questions? Alexander suddenly laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. I just came from a funeral. My best friend, Mikhail. We grew up together. He took a bullet meant for me 3 days ago. He downed the second glass of vodka. He had a wife, 2 kids, and he died because of me. Because of this life. Stella's heart clenched with unexpected sympathy. She knew she should walk away, but something kept her rooted to the spot. Maybe it was the raw grief in his voice. Maybe it was the way he suddenly looked less like a monster and more like a man carrying an unbearable weight. I'm sorry for your loss. The words came out sincere. Alexander's eyes snapped up to hers. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then slowly he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man about to do something reckless. I'll make you a bet, Stella. Alexander stood up, towering over her. Spend one night with me. Just one night. And I'll give you $100 million. The bar seemed to tilt around her. Stella was certain she had misheard. What? You heard me. $100 million. Transferred to any account you want. All you have to do is spend one night with me. Alexander stepped closer. No strings. No obligations after. Just one night. Stella's mind raced. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was... Her sister's face flashed through her mind. Maya. Sweet 16-year-old Maya, who was currently dying in a hospital bed because they couldn't afford the heart transplant she desperately needed. The doctors had given her 48 hours. Maybe less. $100 million would save Maya's life. Why? Stella whispered. Why would you offer that? Alexander's expression darkened. Because I'm tired of feeling nothing. I'm tired of being surrounded by people who want something from me. Money. Power. Protection. Just once, I want to be with someone who sees me as human. Even if I have to pay for it. Stella's conscience warred with her desperation. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was wrong. But Maya was dying. Her baby sister was dying, and Stella had spent the last 3 months watching her fade away, powerless to stop it. One night, Stella heard herself say, "And you transfer the money first." Alexander pulled out his phone. "What's your bank account number?" Stella recited it with shaking hands. She watched as Alexander's fingers flew across the screen. 30 seconds later, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and nearly dropped it. Deposit. $100 million. Oh my God. Stella's legs nearly gave out. Oh my God. I keep my promises. Alexander extended his hand. Shall we? Stella took his hand. His palm was rough and calloused, but his grip was surprisingly gentle. As he led her toward the stairs, she caught Pavel's expression. Her boss looked terrified for her. Maybe she should be terrified too. They emerged into the cool night air. A black SUV waited at the curb. Alexander opened the door for her, and Stella climbed inside. The leather seats were soft. Classical music played quietly from the speakers. As they drove through the city streets, Stella's phone buzzed again. A text from the hospital. Maya's condition has worsened. Please come immediately. I need to make a call. Stella's voice cracked. My sister. I need to arrange her surgery. Tonight. Alexander glanced at her, and for the first time, she saw understanding in his eyes. That's why you accepted. She needs a heart transplant. She has less than 2 days. Tears streamed down Stella's face. I've tried everything. Insurance won't cover it. I've applied for every grant, every program. This was my last option. My only option. Alexander handed her his phone. Make the call. Tell them to prepare for surgery immediately. Money is no object. As Stella made desperate phone calls to doctors, arranging for her sister's life-saving surgery, she didn't notice Alexander watching her with an expression that was part admiration, part something else entirely. Something that looked almost like hope. Chapter 2. Alexander's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Volkov Tower, the tallest building in the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the glittering skyline, but Stella barely noticed. Her mind was still at the hospital, with Maya being prepped for surgery. The doctors said they'll start in 2 hours. Stella clutched Alexander's phone like a lifeline. They said she has a real chance now. Good. Alexander shrugged off his blood-stained jacket and tossed it over a chair. He moved to the bar and poured himself another drink. You want something? Wine. Champagne. Water is fine. Now that the adrenaline was fading, reality crashed over her. She was alone in a penthouse with one of the most dangerous men in the country. A man who had just paid her $100 million for a single night. Alexander returned with water and whiskey. He gestured to the massive leather couch. Sit. You look like you're about to pass out. Stella perched on the edge, muscles tense. Alexander sat on the opposite end, maintaining distance. He loosened his tie and unbuttoned his collar. In the soft lighting, she could see exhaustion etched into his face. Relax. Alexander's lips curved into a slight smile. I'm not going to jump on you. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Stella asked quietly. Men don't pay $100 million for conversation. This one does. Alexander took a long drink. Do you know what it's like to be surrounded by people every day and still feel completely alone? Everyone who talks to me wants something. Everyone sees either a weapon or a wallet. No one sees me. Stella studied him carefully. Without the dangerous aura, Alexander looked different. Younger. Shadows under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights. You said you came from a funeral. Stella spoke softly. Your friend Mikhail. How long had you known him? Alexander's expression crumbled before he rebuilt his walls. Since we were 7. We grew up in the same orphanage. When my uncle claimed me, brought me into the family business, Mikhail came with me. He was my brother in every way that mattered. I'm truly sorry. Stella meant it. She knew what it was like to lose someone. She had lost her father 3 years ago. He had a 5-year-old daughter named Anya. Alexander's voice grew thick. At the funeral, she asked why her daddy wasn't waking up. She kept shaking his hand, telling him to stop sleeping. He drained his glass and poured another. How do you explain death to a child? How do you tell her that her father is gone because of my choices? Stella's heart ached. She found herself moving closer. It wasn't your fault. He chose to protect you. That was his decision. Was it? Alexander's gray eyes met hers. Or did I trap him in this life? We all make our own choices. Stella said firmly. Even in impossible situations. Alexander laughed bitterly. Like you chose to come here tonight? The word stung. Stella looked down at her hands. I chose to save my sister. That's the only choice that mattered. Silence fell. Alexander refilled his glass for the 4th time. The bottle was already half empty. Tell me about her. Alexander said suddenly. Your sister. Stella's face softened. Maya is everything good in this world. She's 16, loves to paint, dreams of art school in Paris. She volunteers at the animal shelter every weekend, even exhausted from treatments. Tears pricked her eyes. She never complains. Just keeps smiling and telling me everything will be okay. She sounds remarkable. She is. And she deserves to live. Stella wiped her eyes. That's why I'm here. I would do anything for her. Alexander stared at her. You really love her. She's all I have left. Stella's voice broke. Our parents died 3 years ago. Car accident. It's been just the 2 of us. I've been working 3 jobs trying to pay for her medications. But the transplant was impossible. Until tonight. What did your father do? Stella tensed. He worked in import-export. Mostly legitimate business, some less legitimate connections. Alexander nodded slowly. He stood, swaying slightly, and walked to the windows. My father was a monster. He taught me that power is the only thing that matters. That love makes you weak. That mercy is for fools. He pressed his palm against the glass. I believed him for a long time. And now? Stella asked. Now I don't know what I believe. His eyes were glassy from alcohol, but honest. I've killed men, Stella. I've destroyed lives. But tonight, watching Mikhail's daughter cry over his coffin, I wondered what's the point? What am I building with all this blood? Stella walked to him slowly. The pain in his voice called to something deep inside her. It's not too late to change. She said softly. It's never too late to choose differently. Alexander laughed, but it came out as a sob. You don't know the things I've done. The people I've hurt. Then tell me. Stella surprised herself. You paid to not be alone. So don't be alone. Talk to me. Something in Alexander's expression shattered. He sank onto the floor, his back against the window, and buried his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. Stella lowered herself beside him. Slowly, she placed a hand on his shoulder. And Alexander Volkov, the most feared man in the city, broke down completely. He talked for hours. About the orphanage, cold and hungry. About his uncle treating him like a weapon. About his first kill at 15. About the empire built on fear. About nightmares and crushing loneliness. Stella listened. She didn't judge. Just listened, her hand on his shoulder. At some point, Alexander's head ended up in her lap. She stroked his hair gently as he continued talking, words growing slower from alcohol and exhaustion. I'm tired, he whispered finally. I'm so tired of being the monster. Then stop, Stella said simply. Choose something else. It's not that easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. Alexander's eyes drifted closed. Within minutes, his breathing evened out. He had fallen asleep in her lap, vulnerable in a way Stella suspected he never allowed. Her phone buzzed. Maya was in surgery. Everything was going well. Stella should feel relieved. She had saved her sister's life. But as she looked at Alexander's sleeping face, she felt something complicated and confusing. Her eyes wandered to photographs on a shelf near the window. Curiosity got the better of her. Carefully, she shifted Alexander's head onto a cushion and stood up. Most photos were formal, but one showed a younger Alexander with his arm around Mikhail. Both genuinely happy. Beside the photographs was a sleek black folder. Stella knew she shouldn't look, but her hand reached for it anyway. She opened the folder. Her blood turned to ice. Inside were documents. Hit orders. Targets. Names and photographs of people marked for death. And there, 3 pages in, was a photograph that made her heart stop. Her father, Antonio Russo. Target eliminated. Date, 3 years ago. The date matched exactly. The night her parents had died in that car accident. It hadn't been an accident. Alexander had ordered the hit that killed her father. Stella's hands shook. Bile rose in her throat. The room spun. The man sleeping peacefully on the couch, the man who had cried in her arms, had murdered her father. She looked back at Alexander, still sleeping, unaware. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to grab a weapon, to make him pay. But Maya was still in surgery. The money was transferred, but Stella was in Alexander's home, surrounded by his security. If she acted rashly, she might not survive. And who would take care of Maya? So Stella closed the folder with trembling hands. She placed it back exactly where she found it. She returned to the couch and sat down stiffly, her mind racing. She would play along. She would finish this night. She would make sure Maya recovered. And then she would figure out how to make Alexander Volkov pay for destroying her family. She sat in the darkness, watching the man who had killed her father sleep peacefully, and felt her heart turn to stone. Chapter 3. Morning light filtered through the windows, painting the penthouse in gold and amber. Stella hadn't slept. She had spent the entire night watching Alexander sleep, her mind a tornado of grief and rage. Her father's face kept flashing through her memory. Antonio Russo had been a good man. He had raised her and Maya with love. And Alexander had taken him away. Alexander stirred, groaning as he pushed himself up. His hair was disheveled, eyes bloodshot. His gaze found Stella. You stayed. His voice was rough. I kept my end of the deal. Stella's voice came out cold. She softened it quickly. She couldn't let him suspect anything. How are you feeling? Alexander winced. Like I drank an entire bottle of whiskey. Because I did. He stood slowly. I don't usually break down like that. Last night was human. Stella finished. Something flickered across his face. Thank you for listening. Stella forced a smile, though her stomach churned. Everyone needs someone to talk to sometimes. Alexander's phone buzzed. His expression shifted to the cold mask of the Mafia boss. I need to handle some business. My driver will take you wherever you need to go. The hospital, I assume? Yes. I need to check on Maya. Every second in this penthouse felt like breathing poison. Stella. Alexander caught her wrist gently. His touch made her skin crawl, but she forced herself not to flinch. Last night meant something to me. Stella met his gray eyes and saw genuine emotion. It made everything worse. I should go. Alexander nodded. My driver is downstairs. If you need anything, call this number. He handed her a business card. I mean it. Stella took the card and fled. The elevator ride felt endless. Her reflection showed a woman she barely recognized. Hollow eyes. Pale skin. A ghost. Boris, the driver, said nothing as she climbed into the black SUV. The morning streets were quiet as they drove toward St. Catherine's Hospital. Stella's phone buzzed. Maya's surgery was successful. She's in recovery. Stable condition. Relief flooded through her. Maya was alive. Whatever else happened, at least her sister would live. The SUV pulled up to the hospital. Stella hurried inside, navigating to the cardiac wing. Dr. Martinez met her outside Maya's room. The transplant went perfectly. Your sister is a fighter, Miss Russo. She's still sedated, but her vitals are strong. Can I see her? Of course. Just for a few minutes. Stella entered the recovery room. Maya looked so small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines. But her chest rose and fell steadily. Color had returned to her cheeks. Stella took her sister's hand carefully. Hey, Maya. It's me. You did it. You're going to be okay now. I promise. Maya's fingers twitched slightly in response. Stella stayed for 20 minutes, just holding her sister's hand. Finally, a nurse suggested she let Maya rest. Stella kissed her sister's forehead and stepped into the hallway. She made it 3 steps before someone grabbed her from behind. A hand clamped over her mouth, cutting off her scream. A strong arm wrapped around her waist, lifting her off her feet. Stella thrashed wildly. "Stop fighting or your sister dies." A male voice hissed. "We know which room she's in. 1 word from me and my partner goes in there right now." Stella froze instantly. Terror flooded her veins. "Good girl. Now walk." He steered her toward a service exit, away from the main corridors. The threat against Maya paralyzed her. They exited into a loading area where a white van waited. Another man, heavily tattooed, gestured impatiently. "Hurry up. Security cameras caught us." Stella was shoved into the van. She landed hard, pain shooting through her knees. The doors slammed shut. The van lurched forward. Stella pounded on the walls. "Let me out." "Shut up." The tattooed man pointed a gun at her. "Sit down and be quiet, or I put a bullet in you." Stella sank to the floor, shaking. The van drove for 30 minutes. When it stopped, Stella found herself staring at an abandoned warehouse. Rusted metal. Broken windows. The smell of decay. "Out!" They marched her inside. More men waited. At least a dozen, all armed, all wearing matching tattoos on their necks. A wolf's head. Stella's blood ran cold. The Kozlov family. Alexander's biggest rivals. "Well, well." A voice echoed through the warehouse. A man stepped from the shadows. He was older than Alexander, mid-40s, with silver streaking his dark hair. The little bartender who caught Alexander Volkov's eye. "You're even prettier in person." "Who are you?" Stella tried to keep her voice steady. "I am Dmitry Kozlov." The man circled her slowly. "And what I want is simple. I want Alexander Volkov to suffer. For years, he has taken from me territory, money, respect. He killed my nephew 6 months ago. I don't know anything about that." Stella's voice cracked. "I just met him last night. I'm nobody." "Oh, but that's not true." Dmitry stopped in front of her. "Alexander doesn't spend time with nobodies. He doesn't bring women to his penthouse. He certainly doesn't pay them $100 million. He smiled coldly. "Yes, we know about that. We have people inside his organization." Stella's mind reeled. "You're going to help us." Dmitry continued. "We're going to send Alexander a little message. I told you, I'm nothing to him." Stella backed away. "Then he won't mind if we hurt you." Dmitry nodded to his men. 2 grabbed Stella's arms. A third approached with a camera. "Smile for Alexander." What followed was the longest 10 minutes of Stella's life. They didn't kill her, but they hurt her. A punch to her stomach. A blow to her face that split her lip. They ripped her shirt, staging everything for maximum effect. And they recorded all of it. When they stopped, Stella collapsed to the floor. Blood dripped from her mouth. Her ribs screamed. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the terror. "Send it," Dmitry instructed. "Let Alexander see what we have. Tell him if he wants her back alive, he surrenders his entire territory. He has 24 hours. One of the men worked on a laptop, uploading the video. "What if he doesn't care?" one man asked. Dmitry laughed. "I saw how he looked at her last night when they left the bar. I've been watching him for 20 years. I know obsession when I see it." They dragged Stella to a corner and chained her wrist to a pipe. The metal was cold against her skin. She huddled against the wall, trying to think through the pain. Hours passed. Stella drifted in and out of consciousness. At some point, she heard phones buzzing. Urgent conversations in Russian. He's responded. Dmitry walked over. He held up his phone so she could see. A message from Alexander. "You just signed your death warrant. I'm coming for her. And when I find you, I will burn your entire family to the ground." Dmitry smiled. "Perfect. Let him come. We'll be ready." Stella's heart sank. Alexander was walking into a trap. Dmitry had at least 50 men here. Alexander might be powerful, but he wasn't invincible. And despite everything, despite the fact that he had killed her father, Stella didn't want to watch him die. She didn't want to die either. She thought of Maya, recovering in the hospital, unaware. If Stella died here, who would take care of her sister? No, she couldn't die. She wouldn't. Stella tested the chain binding her wrist. It was solid, but the pipe looked old. Rusted. She began working it back and forth, quietly, while Dmitry's men prepared for Alexander's arrival. She would find a way out of this. She had to. Chapter 4. The warehouse had transformed into a fortress. Dmitry's men positioned themselves at every entrance. Rifles. Shotguns. Automatic weapons. They were ready for war. Stella continued working the pipe, ignoring the pain. The metal was definitely loose. A few more hours and she might pull it free. But did she have time? Movement on the north perimeter. A voice crackled over the radio. 3 vehicles approaching. Dmitri smiled coldly. Right on schedule. Alexander always was predictable when emotions were involved. He turned to his men. I want him alive. Kill everyone else. The men spread out, disappearing into shadows. The warehouse fell silent except for Stella's ragged breathing. Then all hell broke loose. The explosion came from the east wall, not the north. The blast was deafening. Debris rained down as a gaping hole appeared. Smoke poured through. Gunfire erupted immediately. Stella pressed herself against the wall. Bullets ricocheted off metal. Men screamed. Through the smoke, a figure emerged. Alexander. He wore all black body armor strapped over his chest. His face was spattered with blood. In his hands, 2 pistols barked death with every shot. He moved like a demon, cutting through Dmitri's men with terrifying efficiency. There! Kill him! Dmitri screamed. 5 men converged on Alexander. He dropped one with a headshot, spun and caught another in the throat. A third swung a knife. Alexander caught his wrist, twisted brutally, and the knife ended up buried in the attacker's own stomach. Stella watched in horror and awe. This wasn't the broken man who had cried in her lap. This was the monster everyone feared. More men poured in. Alexander was outnumbered 20-1, but he didn't slow down. Every movement calculated, every shot finding its mark. But he was bleeding. Dark stains spread across his shirt. Multiple hits. Alexander. The name tore from her throat. His head snapped toward her. Their eyes met across the chaos. Something fierce flashed in his gaze. That moment of distraction almost cost his life. A man tackled him, driving him to the ground. They grappled. The attacker raised a knife toward Alexander's throat. Alexander caught the blade with his bare hand. Blood poured from his palm, but he held firm. With his other hand, he grabbed nearby rebar and swung it, connecting with his attacker's skull. The man went limp. Alexander staggered to his feet, still moving toward Stella. Bodies littered the ground behind him. Enough! Dmitri's voice rang out. The remaining gunmen stopped firing. Dmitri stood on a catwalk above, holding a detonator. One more step, Alexander, and I blow this entire building. Alexander froze. Blood dripped from his hand, his shoulder, his side. He was barely standing. Let her go, Dmitri. This is between us. You killed my nephew. My sister's only son. Your nephew was selling drugs to children. Alexander's voice was cold. He broke our agreement. He knew the consequences. He was 22 years old. Dmitri screamed. Stella's fingers found the pipe again. While they faced off, she worked it frantically. The rust flaked away. Almost free. I gave him a warning, Alexander said. He ignored it. The pipe came free. Stella held her breath, staying still. The chain was still attached to her wrist, but she was no longer anchored. She slowly gathered it in her hands. Put down the detonator. Alexander stepped forward. Let's settle this the old way. Dmitri laughed. You're bleeding out. You're outnumbered. He raised the detonator. Get on your knees, or I blow us all to hell. You won't. You want me to suffer. A quick death isn't enough for you. Here's what's happening. Alexander continued. You let Stella walk out. In exchange, I'll let you take me alive. But she goes free first. No. Stella's voice rang out. Both men turned. She stood now, the chain hanging from her wrist. I'm not leaving you here to die. Stella, don't. Touching. Dmitri sneered. But I'm not interested in deals. He gestured to his men. Grab the girl. Kill Volkov slowly. The remaining men, maybe 10, moved forward. Alexander raised his guns, but Stella could see he was swaying. He wouldn't survive another fight. Stella did the only thing she could think of. The thing her father had taught her. She ran. Not away, but toward the nearest gunman. He wasn't expecting it. She swung the heavy chain like a whip, catching him across the face. He stumbled, and Stella grabbed the gun from his holster. She had never shot anyone before, but instinct and desperation guided her hands. She pulled the trigger. The gunman approaching Alexander from behind dropped instantly. Blood bloomed across his chest. Stella stared at what she had done. Her hands shook violently. Stella, behind you. Alexander's warning came too late. Something hard connected with the back of her head. Stars exploded across her vision. She fell. The last thing she heard was gunfire and Alexander's voice, roaring her name with anguish. When Stella woke, everything was quiet. She was lying on something soft. She forced her eyes open. A different room. Small. Concrete walls. A single bulb. She was on a cot with a thin blanket. Stella sat up slowly, her head pounding. Her fingers touched her skull and came away sticky with blood. "You're awake." A familiar voice. Alexander sat against the opposite wall. He looked terrible. His shirt was torn and soaked with blood. Makeshift bandages wrapped his shoulder and side. His face was bruised and swollen. "Where are we?" "Safe house. Basement level." Alexander winced. "Dimitri's men had us both. I woke up an hour ago. Managed to take out the guards. Got us down here. You should be in a hospital. I've had worse." Alexander's eyes were intense. "You saved my life back there. That man would have shot me if you hadn't taken him down." Stella looked at her hands. Stained with blood. "I've never." "Hey!" Alexander's voice softened. "Look at me." Stella raised her eyes. "You did what you had to do to survive. There's no shame in that." Alexander said firmly. "That takes courage." "I don't feel courageous." Stella whispered. "I feel sick. That means you're still human." Alexander tried to smile. "The day killing doesn't bother you is the day you've lost your soul." Silence fell. Stella's mind was a mess of emotions. "Alexander." She spoke carefully. "I need to ask you something. And I need the truth." Something in her tone made him tense. "What is it?" 3 years ago. A man named Antonio Russo." Stella watched his face. "Do you know that name?" Alexander's expression went still. "Why are you asking about Antonio Russo?" "Because he was my father." Stella's voice cracked. "He died 3 years ago. They said car accident, but last night, in your penthouse, I found a folder. A kill list. His name was on it." Alexander closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were filled with pain. "Stella, did you kill my father?" The words came out raw, desperate. "No." Alexander's answer was immediate and firm. "I did not kill your father. But the folder. The folder was my brother's." Alexander interrupted. "Marco. He's my half-brother. 3 years ago, I was negotiating a deal with your father. Antonio was trying to get out of the life, go legitimate. I was helping him." Stella's heart pounded. "What happened?" "Marco went behind my back. He saw your father as a threat. So he ordered the hit without my knowledge." Alexander's hands clenched. "By the time I found out, your parents were dead. Why didn't you stop him?" "I tried." Alexander's voice turned harsh. "But he had built alliances within the family. When I moved against him, half the organization sided with him." He looked at Stella with genuine remorse. "Marco disappeared. I've been hunting him for 3 years." "So your brother killed my father?" "Yes." Alexander met her gaze steadily. "I keep that folder as a reminder. When I find him, he'll answer for all of it, including Antonio Russo." Before Stella could respond, a sound echoed from above. Footsteps. Alexander was on his feet instantly. He grabbed a gun. "Get behind me." The door burst open. Men poured down the stairs. But they weren't Dimitri's men. They wore the Volkov family colors. Alexander's own soldiers. "Boss." The lead man took in Alexander's condition with alarm. "We tracked your phone's emergency signal." "I've been better, Victor." Alexander lowered his gun. "Dimitri?" "Dead. We hit his compound 20 minutes ago." Victor's eyes moved to Stella. "This is Stella," Alexander said firmly. "She's under my protection. Make sure everyone knows that." Victor nodded. "We need to get you to a doctor. Both of you." As they climbed out, Stella's mind whirled with everything Alexander had told her. Could it be true? She glanced at Alexander, being supported by 2 men. Even battered and bleeding, he held himself like a leader. He had come for her, had fought through impossible odds, had been willing to trade his life for hers. That had to mean something. But could she really trust Alexander Volkov? Chapter 5. The private medical facility belonged to the Volkov family. It operated in the shadows, treating injuries that couldn't be explained to regular hospitals. No questions asked. No records kept. Stella sat on an examination table while a doctor stitched the gash on the back of her head. She barely felt it. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying everything that had happened in the warehouse. The sound of the gun in her hand. The way the man had fallen. The blood. All done. The doctor, an older woman with kind eyes, patted Stella's shoulder gently. You have a mild concussion. You need rest. No strenuous activity for at least a week. Thank you. Stella slid off the table carefully. Her entire body ached. Bruises covered her ribs, her arms, her face. But she was alive. Maya was alive. That was what mattered. How's my sister? Stella asked. Maya Russo at St. Catherine's Hospital. Can someone check on her? Already done. Victor appeared in the doorway. I sent 2 of our best men to watch her room. She's stable. The doctors say her recovery is going better than expected. He paused. Boss wants to see you. He's in the next room. Stella followed Victor down a sterile hallway. He opened a door and gestured for her to enter. Alexander sat shirtless on another examination table, his torso wrapped in fresh bandages. The doctor had just finished with him. 3 gunshot wounds. 2 through and through, one that had required surgery to remove the bullet. Plus various cuts, bruises, and a cracked rib. He should look weak. Diminished. Instead, he looked dangerous. Like a wounded predator ready to strike. Leave us. Alexander's command was quiet, but absolute. Victor and the doctor left immediately, closing the door behind them. Stella and Alexander stared at each other across the room. The air felt thick with unspoken words. You didn't have to come after me, Stella finally said. You could have just let them kill me. Cut your losses. That was never an option. Alexander's voice was rough. From the moment I saw that video, from the moment I saw them hurting you, there was only one choice. Get you back or die trying. Why? Stella demanded. You paid me for one night. That was the deal. Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Alexander stood slowly, wincing at the movement. He walked toward her, each step deliberate. He stopped just inches away, close enough that Stella could feel the heat radiating from his body. Because when I look at you, I see something I thought was lost to me forever. His gray eyes burned into hers. Hope. Goodness. A reason to be better than what I am. He reached up, his fingers barely touching the bruise on her cheek. Because in one night, you made me feel more human than I have in 10 years. Stella's breath caught. She wanted to step back, to maintain distance, but her feet wouldn't move. You can't just decide you care about someone because they listened to you for one night. That's not how it works. Then how does it work? Alexander challenged. Tell me the rules for feeling something real in a world full of lies. I don't know, Stella admitted. But I know this is insane. You're a criminal. You've killed people. You live in a world of violence and blood. She paused, her voice dropping. And your brother killed my father. I know. Alexander's hand fell away. And I understand if you hate me for that. If you blame me for not stopping Marco before he acted. I blame myself every day for the people he hurt because I wasn't strong enough to control him. I don't hate you. The words surprised Stella as much as they seemed to surprise Alexander. I want to. God, I want to. But I keep thinking about last night. About the man who cried in my arms and told me his fears. That man didn't seem like a monster. Maybe I'm both, Alexander said quietly. Monster and man. Maybe that's the truth you need to accept. Before Stella could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and her blood ran cold at the message displayed on the screen. Unknown number. Congratulations on surviving, little sister. But did you really think it would be that easy? The game is just beginning. And Alexander is lying to you about everything. What is it? Alexander noticed her expression. Stella showed him the message. She watched his face darken with rage. Marco. He practically spat the name. He's been watching. This whole thing with Dimitri, it was his plan. I should have known. What does he mean I'm your little sister? Stella's hands shook. That doesn't make any sense. Alexander took the phone, reading the message again. His jaw clenched. He's trying to mess with your head. Make you doubt everything. That's how Marco operates. Another message came through. Ask Alexander about his father. Ask him about Elena Russo. Ask him why Antonio really had to die. The truth will destroy you both. Stella felt sick. Who is Elena Russo? That was my mother's name. Alexander's face went pale. Actually pale. For the first time since she had met him, he looked genuinely shaken. Your mother's name was Elena? Yes. Elena Russo. She died with my father in the car crash. Stella grabbed Alexander's arm. What aren't you telling me? I need to make a call. Alexander moved toward the door. Stay here. Don't leave this room. No. Stella blocked his path. No more secrets. No more half-truths. If Marco knows something about my parents, about me, then I have the right to know. Tell me now, or I walk out that door and you never see me again. Alexander looked torn. She could see the conflict raging behind his eyes. Finally, he nodded slowly. Okay, but you need to understand, I only learned some of this recently. What did you find? Stella's voice was barely a whisper. My father, Nikolai Volkov, had a relationship with a woman 28 years ago, before he married my mother. This woman worked as a translator for one of his business associates. Her name was Elena. Alexander met Stella's eyes. Elena Russo. The room tilted. Stella grabbed the edge of the examination table to steady herself. No, that's not possible. I had my people pull records, birth certificates, hospital documents. Alexander's voice was gentle but firm. Elena Russo gave birth to a daughter 27 years ago. That daughter was you, Stella. And according to the DNA test I had run using samples from my father's medical files. He paused. You're his daughter too. I'm 24, Stella said desperately. Not 27. Your birth certificate says 24. But the hospital records tell a different story. Someone changed your documents. Alexander took a step closer. Stella, I think your mother ran from my father when she found out she was pregnant. She knew what kind of man he was. She didn't want that life for you. So she disappeared, changed both your identities, and eventually married Antonio Russo. He adopted you, raised you as his own. Stella couldn't breathe. So what you're saying? What you're telling me is that we're half-siblings, Alexander finished quietly. You're my sister, Stella. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Everything that had happened between them. The attraction she had been fighting. It was all wrong. Twisted. No. Stella backed away. No, this can't be true. Another message lit up her phone. Now do you see, Stella? Alexander knew before he ever made that bet with you. He's been playing you from the beginning. Because I'm not just his brother. I'm your real father. Antonio Russo was nobody. Stella's legs gave out. She sank to the floor. Alexander reached out. Don't believe him. Marco is a liar. He's not your father. My father was. And I didn't know who you were when I made that bet. I swear. How can I believe anything? Stella looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. My whole life is a lie. Before she could respond, an alarm blared through the facility. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Victor burst through the door. We have a situation. Someone leaked our location. 3 vehicles approaching. They'll be here in 5 minutes. Marco. Alexander's voice was deadly calm. He turned to Victor. Get everyone to evacuation positions. Now. Alexander grabbed Stella's hand, pulling her to her feet. I know you don't trust me. But right now, Marco isn't coming just to talk. He's coming to take you. And if he gets his hands on you, you'll wish Dmitri had killed you back in that warehouse. Stella's survival instincts kicked in. What do? We run. Alexander grabbed a gun from a cabinet. And then we figure out how to end this. They moved into the hallway. Victor had already mobilized the security team. Men rushed past carrying weapons. The garage. Alexander pulled Stella toward a stairwell. They were halfway down when Stella stumbled, her vision blurring. She grabbed the railing. Stella. Alexander caught her before she could fall. What's wrong? I don't know. I feel. Stella's words slurred. The world spun. Something's wrong. I can't. Her knees buckled. Alexander caught her full weight, his face shifting from concern to horror. The doctor, he whispered. The one who treated you. Marco must have gotten to her. His voice seemed far away. Poison. You've been poisoned. The last thing Stella saw before darkness claimed her was Alexander's face, twisted with anguish and rage, as he screamed for help that might already be too late. Chapter 6. Stella woke to the steady beep of medical monitors. Not the Volkov facility. Somewhere else. Easy. Don't move too fast. Alexander sat beside her bed, his face haggard with exhaustion. How long? Stella's voice came out as a rasp. 3 days. You've been unconscious for 3 days. The Dr. Marco paid off injected you with a slow-acting poison. Novichok derivative. It shuts down your nervous system gradually. But I'm alive. Barely. We got you to a specialist in time. Someone who knew how to synthesize the antidote. But Stella. He paused. The poison is still in your system. The antidote is only buying us time. You need the full cure, and there's only one place to get it. Where? Marco has it. He's been developing chemical weapons for years. He created this particular poison specifically for situations like this. A way to control people. Alexander's fists clenched. He knew if he poisoned you, he could use the cure as leverage. How much time do I have? 2 weeks. Maybe less. After that, your organs will start failing. Stella absorbed this with strange calm. So we need to get the cure from Marco. Yes. And I know where he's keeping it. Alexander showed her surveillance photos. A massive compound surrounded by high walls and armed guards. His estate outside the city. He has a laboratory in the basement. That's where he keeps his chemical inventory. How do we get in? We don't. I do. You're too weak to. I'm dying anyway. Stella interrupted. If you go in there alone, Marco will kill you. But he won't expect me to come willingly. He thinks I'm helpless. That makes me your best weapon. Alexander stared at her. You're serious? I'm not going to lie in this bed and wait to die. With or without you. Something shifted in Alexander's expression. Okay, but we do this my way. And you follow my lead exactly. Over the next 3 days, they planned. Alexander brought in his most trusted people. Victor. Irina, who specialized in security systems. Pavel, a young hacker. Alexander trained Stella despite her weakening body. Basic combat moves. How to hold a gun properly. How to move silently. It was brutal. Stella collapsed more than once. But she got stronger. Or maybe she just got better at hiding the weakness. During the training, something shifted between them. The tension transformed into something else. A partnership. A bond forged in desperation. One night, after a particularly intense session, they sat together on the roof of the safe house. Tell me about her, Stella said quietly. Our mother. Elena. Alexander showed Stella an image. A young woman with dark hair and warm eyes. Stella's eyes. She was beautiful. Kind. My father destroyed that. When she tried to leave him, he threatened to take you away. So she ran. Changed her name. Found Antonio Russo, a good man who agreed to help her disappear. And Antonio raised me as his own. He died protecting that secret. Marco found out the truth. That's why he ordered the hit. He wanted to force Elena to come back, to bring you back to the family. But she died in the crash too. I'm not a Volkov, Stella said fiercely. I'm a Russo. That's the name my real father gave me. You'll survive this, Alexander said. I promise you that. And if we don't, then we fail together. Alexander reached over and took her hand. I won't let you die alone, Stella. The touch sent electricity through her body. Wrong. This was wrong. But she didn't pull away. Alexander. What are we doing? This thing between us, it can't happen. I know what we are. And I know it's impossible. But right now, I don't care about blood or family. I only care that you're here. That you're alive. Stella should say no. Should push him away. Instead, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first. Tentative. Then Alexander's hand came up to cup her face, and everything else fell away. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. That was a mistake, Stella whispered. Probably. But I can't bring myself to regret it. Her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital. Her blood froze. Maya wants to see you. She's being discharged tomorrow. She says she has a surprise for you. Dr. Martinez. Maya isn't being discharged tomorrow, Stella's voice shook. I spoke to her doctor this morning. She has at least another week of recovery. And Dr. Martinez never texts. Understanding dawned on Alexander's face. Marco. He is Maya. Stella was already standing. He's using her to force me to come to him. Alexander grabbed his gear. Then we move tonight. The plan goes into effect now. The drive to Marco's compound took an hour. They moved quickly, scaling the wall using climbing gear. Stella's muscles screamed, but she pushed through. Maya needed her. They slipped inside. The interior was surprisingly normal. Expensive artwork. Plush carpets. This is too easy, Alexander muttered. They descended into the laboratory. Rows of shelves held countless vials. And in the center, sitting calmly at a desk, was a man who looked like Alexander. Same dark hair, same features. But his eyes were colder. Emptier. Marco Volkov smiled. Hello, brother. And hello, Stella. My dear, sweet daughter. I'm not your daughter. Stella raised her gun. Where's Maya? She demanded. Safe. For now. Marco touched a button. A screen lowered, showing Maya tied to a chair in another room. She looked terrified. She's such a pretty girl. Let Maya go. Alexander's voice was deadly calm. But that's where you're wrong, brother. Marco pressed another button. On the screen, a door opened behind Maya. A figure entered. Stella's world stopped. The person walking toward Maya was someone Stella recognized. Her sister. But this Maya looked different. Older. Harder. Completely healthy. "Hello, Stella." Maya's voice came through the speakers, and it wasn't the voice of a sick teenager. "Surprised to see me? What is this?" "There was never a heart transplant, Stella. I was never sick. It was all a setup. Marco paid me very well to play the dying sister." Maya smiled cruelly. "I've been working for Marco since I was 12 years old." The gun fell from Stella's numb fingers. "You're lying." "I recognize her," Alexander said hollowly. "I've seen her face in Marco's files. She's been his agent all along." Maya laughed. "Yes, Stella. Everything was planned. Antonio and Elena's death, making sure you ended up working at the Volkov bar, even my fake illness. Marco's been playing the long game." "Why?" "Money. Power. Marco offered me everything." She leaned close to the camera. "Marco funded everything. Your education. Your apartment. My supposed medical bills. You've been his investment since Elena died." Alexander raised his gun at Marco. "Give her the cure. Now." "You won't." Marco showed another image on his phone. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, tied up in a shipping container. "That's your actual sister, Stella. The real Maya Russo. She's been my guest for the last 3 weeks." The room tilted. "That's impossible. My agent studied you for years. She became Maya so thoroughly that even you couldn't tell the difference." Marco walked toward Stella. "You're going to come with me voluntarily. Do exactly what I say. In exchange, I'll give you the cure and release the real Maya unharmed." Alexander leaves quietly. Everyone gets what they want. "And if I refuse? Then you die slowly. The real Maya dies quickly. And Alexander gets to live with the guilt." Stella looked at Alexander. His eyes begged her to refuse. But all she could think about was the little girl in the container. "I'll go with you. Just let Maya go." "No." Alexander lunged forward, but Victor held him back. "Stella, don't do this. There is no other way." Marco extended his hand. "Come, daughter." Stella took a step toward him. "Wait." Alexander's voice rang out. "I have something Marco wants even more than Stella." Marco paused. "Really? And what might that be?" Alexander smiled. A terrible smile. "The location of our father's fortune. $3 billion in gold, jewels, and cash. Hidden somewhere only I know." He pulled out a small key. "This key opens a safety deposit box in Switzerland. Inside is a map and access codes. Without them, you'll never find the fortune." Greed flickered across Marco's face. "Trade Stella and Maya for that information. Right now. Or I die without ever telling anyone where it is." Marco stared at the key. Finally, he nodded. "Done. But the exchange happens my way. Tomorrow at noon. The old factory by the river. Come alone. And Stella and Maya walk free the moment I hand it over. The moment I verify the key is real." They stared at each other, two apex predators locked in a battle of wills. "Tomorrow, then." Alexander turned and walked toward the exit. As they left, Stella caught one last glimpse of Marco's triumphant face. And she knew with absolute certainty that tomorrow someone was going to die. Chapter 7. The safe house felt suffocating. Stella sat by the window, watching the sun rise. Her last sunrise, maybe. The poison was getting worse. Her hands trembled constantly. Her vision blurred at random intervals. "You should eat something." Alexander set a plate beside her. "I'm not hungry." Everything felt empty after learning the truth about Maya. About her entire life. They hadn't spoken much since leaving Marco's compound. "There's something I need to tell you," Alexander said quietly. "About the key. About my father's fortune." "Is it real?" "Yes and no." Alexander pulled the key from his neck. "The key is real. The safety deposit box exists. But what's inside? It's not a map to $3 billion. Stella looked at him. "Then what is it?" "Evidence. 20 years of documents proving every crime my father ever committed. Including proof that Marco has been running weapons to terrorist organizations. Proof that would put him away for life. So you lied to Marco. To buy time. I lied to save you. Marco won't find out until after the exchange. By then, we'll hopefully have Maya and the cure. And then he'll kill us all. I know. That's why this ends tomorrow. One way or another." Stella turned back to the window. "Why did you kiss me that night? You already knew we were related. You already knew it was wrong. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Because for one moment, I wanted to pretend none of it mattered. That we were just two people who found something real in the darkness. He stood. But you're right. It was selfish. Wrong. I'm sorry. He started to walk away, but Stella caught his hand. I'm not sorry. I should be. But I'm not. Their eyes met. We can't, Alexander whispered. We share blood, Stella. That's a line we can't cross. I know. Stella released his hand. But thank you. For that one moment of pretending. The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Stella tried to help, but her body was failing. She collapsed twice. You can't go tomorrow, Alexander said. You're too weak. I have to go. Marco will expect me. And I need to see Maya. The real Maya. Alexander looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded slowly. Okay, but you stay behind me at all times. That night, Stella couldn't sleep. Around midnight, her door opened. Alexander stood in the doorway. Can't sleep either? Stella asked. Keep thinking about tomorrow. All the ways it could go wrong. He stepped inside. All the people who might die. You've done this before. Why is tomorrow different? Because this time I'm risking someone who matters. His voice was raw. If you die tomorrow because of my choices, I don't know if I can live with that. Then don't let me die. Stella took his hand. Get me that cure. Get Maya to safety. And burn Marco's empire to the ground. Alexander lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. I need to tell you something. In case tomorrow goes wrong, don't do the goodbye speech. Listen, since the moment you walked into my life, everything changed. You made me remember what it felt like to be human. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I know we can't be together, but I need you to know that if circumstances were different, I would have loved you. Completely. Forever. A tear slipped down Stella's cheek. I would have loved you too. In that other life. She paused. But in this life, you're my brother. And that has to be enough. Alexander nodded. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air. Then he pulled away and left. Morning came too quickly. Stella dressed in black, strapped on body armor and weapons. They drove in 3 vehicles. The old factory by the river came into view, massive, half-collapsed from years of neglect. Alexander raised his hand, signaling a stop. He turned to Stella. No matter what happens in there, you get Maya and you run. Don't look back. Promise me. Stella nodded. I promise. Inside, the space was vast and empty. In the center stood Marco, surrounded by at least 30 armed men. Behind him, tied to a chair, was a little girl with dark hair and frightened eyes. The real Maya. Right on time. Marco smiled. Did you bring the key? Alexander held it up. Did you bring the cure? Marco gestured. One of his men stepped forward with a small vial. The antidote. Let Maya go first. No. First the key. Then you get the cure and the girl. Marco paused. But there's one more condition. Stella stays with me. She's a Volkov. She belongs with family. Absolutely not. Alexander raised his gun. You're surrounded. Outgunned. More men emerged from the shadows. At least 50 total. Give me the key and Stella, or everyone dies. Including little Maya. I'll do it. Stella stepped forward. I'll stay with you, Marco. Just let Maya go. No. Alexander grabbed her arm. But Maya is innocent. Stella turned to Marco. Do we have a deal? Marco's expression was triumphant. We have a deal. Victor, bring the girl forward. Victor moved toward Maya, cutting her bonds. The key, Alexander. Marco extended his hand. Alexander's jaw clenched. He handed over the key. Marco examined it, then nodded to a man. Take it to the bank. Verify it's real. Now the cure. Alexander demanded. Marco tossed the vial. Alexander caught it and crossed to Stella. Drink this. All of it. Stella drank it in one swallow. It tasted bitter. Almost immediately, warmth spread through her chest. The numbness receded. Within an hour, you'll feel like yourself again, Marco said. Welcome to the family, daughter. Victor freed Maya. The little girl ran to Alexander, crying. Get her out of here. Alexander told Victor. Protect her with your life. Victor nodded reluctantly and left with Maya and the team. Now, Marco pulled out a gun and pointed it at Alexander. I should tell you something. I was never going to let you leave here alive. Alexander didn't look surprised. I know. Then why did you come? Because I needed Stella and Maya safe. And because I needed you to think you'd won. Alexander's voice was calm. Tell me, Marco. Have you checked your accounts lately? Your shipments. Marco's expression shifted. What are you talking about? While you were busy setting this trap, I was dismantling your empire. I've been working with the authorities for 6 months. And today, right now, they're raiding everything you own. Alexander showed his phone with news alerts. The key opens a safety deposit box. But what's inside isn't treasure. It's evidence. 20 years of crimes. Yours and our father's. Marco's face went pale. You destroyed everything. Your own empire, too. Yes, because some legacies deserve to die. I'm ending it. Right here. You've gone insane. Marco raised his gun at Alexander's head. Then die knowing your sacrifice was worthless. I'll rebuild. And I'll make Stella watch as I destroy every. The gunshot echoed through the factory. But it didn't come from Marco's gun. Marco stumbled backward, a red stain spreading across his chest. He looked down at the wound, then up. Stella stood with her gun raised, smoke curling from the barrel. You threatened my sister. The real Maya. That's all the reason I need. Marco fell to his knees. You killed me. Yes. And I don't feel bad about it. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. This building is surrounded. Chaos erupted. Agents in tactical gear poured in from every entrance. Alexander grabbed Stella's hand. Run. They sprinted toward a side exit. Behind them, gunfire erupted. They burst into daylight. A car waited, Victor behind the wheel with Maya in the back seat. Get in, Victor shouted. They dove in. Victor hit the gas, tires squealing away from the factory. Stella looked back. The building was surrounded. Marco's men were being led out in handcuffs. It was over. Is everyone okay? Victor asked. We're alive, Alexander said. Stella moved to the back seat, pulling Maya into her arms. Who are you? Maya whispered. I'm your sister. Your real sister. And I promise, everything is going to be okay now. Maya burst into tears, clinging to her. As they drove away, Stella met Alexander's eyes in the rearview mirror. He smiled. A real smile. The first genuine one she had ever seen from him. They had survived. But as they disappeared into the city, none of them noticed the figure watching from a nearby rooftop. The woman who looked exactly like Maya. She pulled out her phone. They got away. Marco's dead. What do you want me to do? A voice on the other end, cold and calculating, gave her new instructions. The game wasn't over yet. Chapter 8. The safe house was different. Smaller. More remote. A cottage on the edge of the city, where no one would think to look for them. Stella sat on the porch, watching the sun set. 3 months had passed since the factory. 3 months since she had killed Marco. 3 months since her world had been turned upside down and then slowly, carefully, put back together. Maya was inside, laughing at something on television. The real Maya. Her sister who was slowly healing from the trauma, who smiled more each day. The cure had worked. Stella's body had fully recovered from the poison. She was alive and whole and free. But freedom came with its own complications. You're thinking too hard again. Alexander stepped onto the porch, carrying 2 cups of coffee. I can practically hear the gears turning in your head. Stella accepted the cup with a small smile. Just thinking about everything that's happened. How much has changed? Alexander sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. They had been doing that for 3 months. Staying close enough to feel safe, but far enough to remember what they were to each other. Brother and sister. The federal prosecutors called again today. They want me to testify against the remaining Volkov associates. Alexander stared at the sunset. They've offered me immunity in exchange for my testimony. A chance to start over with a clean slate. That's good. You deserve a fresh start. So do you. The authorities have cleared you of any wrongdoing. Marco's death was ruled self-defense. You and Maya are free to go anywhere. Stella knew what he was really saying. They could leave. Build separate lives. Put distance between themselves and the complicated feelings that hadn't disappeared. Maya wants to go to art school. In Paris. Like she always dreamed. And what do you want? Alexander asked. Stella was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. Everything I thought I wanted was built on lies. She looked at him. The only real thing I have is sitting right here. Their eyes met. All the careful distance they had maintained seemed to evaporate. Stella, we can't. You know we can't. I know, but that doesn't change how I feel. Biology doesn't erase what happened between us. You make me feel human, like I'm more than just my father's son. They sat in charged silence. What if the DNA test was wrong? Stella heard herself say. What if Marco lied about everything? Alexander pulled out his phone slowly. I had 3 independent labs run tests. He showed her the results. I wanted to be sure. Stella's heart pounded as she looked at the screen. 3 separate reports, all showing the same thing. Probability of half-sibling relationship, 99.7%. Tears filled her eyes. So it's real. Half-siblings. I'm sorry, Stella. I wish it was different. Before Stella could respond, the cottage door burst open. Maya ran out, her phone clutched in her hand. Her face was pale. Stella, you need to see this. Stella took the phone. A news article was pulled up. Breaking. Nikolai Volkov's remains exhumed for new investigation. DNA evidence reveals shocking truth. She read with growing disbelief. The authorities had exhumed Nikolai Volkov's body. They had run comprehensive DNA testing. And the results showed something impossible. The man buried in Nikolai Volkov's grave was not Nikolai Volkov. What does this mean? Maya asked. Stella looked at Alexander, who had gone completely still. Did you know about this? No. This is impossible. Unless. His expression shifted to horror. Unless Marco lied about that too. Stella's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Hello, Stella. A woman's voice. Familiar. I think it's time we met in person. There are things you need to know. About who you actually are. Who is this? Someone who knew your mother. Elena. Before she ran from the Volkov family. The woman paused. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. The Botanical Gardens downtown. Come alone. And don't tell Alexander. Not yet. The line went dead. The next day, Stella went to the Botanical Gardens. She found a secluded area near the orchid greenhouse. A woman in her 50s with dark hair sat on a bench. Stella Russo. The woman stood. You look so much like Elena. Who are you? My name is Katerina Volkov. I was Nikolai's wife. Alexander's mother. The woman's smile was bitter. Or so everyone believed. But the truth is much more complicated. What truth? Katerina pulled out an old photograph showing Elena holding a baby. Your mother was my closest friend. When she got involved with Nikolai, I warned her. She paused. Then she got pregnant with you. I know this part. That's what everyone believed. But it's not the whole truth. Nikolai wasn't your father. He never was. Stella felt the world tilt. What? Elena was sleeping with 2 men. Nikolai and someone else. Someone she actually loved. When she got pregnant, she had tests run secretly. Katerina pulled out a document. An old DNA test. The results showed Nikolai was not your biological father. Then who is my father? A good man. His name was Viktor Morozov. He worked as Nikolai's driver. He and Elena were going to run away together, raise you far from the violence. But Nikolai found out. He killed Viktor before you were born. Elena had no choice but to run alone. So I'm not a Volkov. Stella's voice was barely a whisper. No, sweetheart. You're not. And that means you and Alexander are not related by blood. Marco lied about everything. He fabricated documents, bribed lab technicians, created an entire false narrative. Stella couldn't breathe. But the DNA tests. Alexander had 3 independent labs test us. Did Alexander personally collect the samples? Or did Marco's people have access? Stella thought back. The blood draws at the hospital. The medical facility controlled by Volkov associates. Marco would have had dozens of opportunities to tamper with samples. Oh my God. I need to tell Alexander. There's one more thing. Katerina pulled out a death certificate. Nikolai didn't die 10 years ago. He died 27 years ago. Right after he killed Viktor. He had a heart attack during the murder. Then who has been running the Volkov organization? Marco. He took Nikolai's identity. Wore his face through plastic surgery. Became him so completely that even I didn't realize the truth until years later. Alexander never knew his real father. The man he called father was actually Marco pretending to be Nikolai. Why are you telling me this now? Because I needed to be sure Marco was really dead. I needed proof before I could risk coming forward. But now you and Alexander are finally free. Free to live. Free to love. Stella ran all the way back to the cottage. She burst through the door, startling Alexander. Stella? What's wrong? We're not related. The words tumbled out. Alexander, we're not related. Marco lied about everything. The DNA tests were faked. Nikolai wasn't my father. We're not siblings. We never were. She told him everything. About Katerina. About Viktor Morozov. About Marco's deception. When she finished, Alexander sank back onto the couch. This can't be real. Alexander, think about it. Marco controlled everything. He had the resources to fake whatever he wanted. And he wanted us to believe we were siblings because it was the perfect way to keep us apart. If this is true, then it means we get our chance. Stella took his hands. The chance we thought was impossible. We need to verify this. Get new DNA tests. We need to be absolutely certain. Then let's not wait for tests. Stella cupped his face. Let's trust this. Trust what we know in our hearts. We're not related, Alexander. I can feel it. I've wanted you since that first night. Every day since has been torture. Then stop torturing yourself. Take the leap with me. Alexander's hands framed her face. If I kiss you right now, if I let myself fall completely, there's no going back. Good. Because I don't want you to walk away. I want you to stay. Choose us. I choose you, Stella. I've been choosing you from the beginning. He kissed her. And this time, there was no hesitation. No guilt. This time, the kiss was a promise. A beginning. Over the next week, they had new DNA tests done. They used labs with no connection to the Volkov organization. They personally collected the samples. When the results came back, they confirmed what Stella's heart had already known. No genetic relationship detected. 6 months later, Stella stood in a small garden chapel wearing a simple white dress. Maya sat in the front row, beaming. Viktor and Irina and the others sat scattered among the seats. And at the altar stood Alexander. The ceremony was short, simple, perfect. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Alexander kissed Stella like she was oxygen and he had been drowning. I love you, Alexander whispered. My wife, my partner, my reason to be better. I love you too. My husband, my choice, my always. They walked out hand in hand. Maya threw flower petals. Viktor cheered. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew they would face it together. Two broken people who had found wholeness in each other. Two survivors who had earned their happiness. They had started with a bet, $100 million for one night. But what they had found was worth infinitely more. They had found love. Real, honest, hard-won love. And in the end, that was the only thing that truly mattered. Love had won. The end. Thank you for watching this intense love story. If you enjoyed Stella and Alexander's journey from darkness to light, from impossible circumstances to true love, then you're going to love what's coming next. I drop brand new, heart-pounding love stories every single day on this channel. Stories filled with passion, plot twists, drama, and romance that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a story. Tomorrow's tale might be even more dramatic, more romantic, or more shocking than this one. Drop a comment below telling me what you thought of Stella and Alexander's story. What was your favorite moment? Which plot twist shocked you the most? I read every single comment. See you tomorrow with another incredible story.